My roommate tried to replace my dead dog to hurt me, so I had her arrested, but she returned one last time, determined to finish the job. Bear was never a service dog. He wasn't trained to alert or fetch or anything official. But when I locked myself in the bathroom after my dad's funeral, Bear pawed at the door until I let him in, then sat in my lap and didn't move for 2 hours. When I broke up with my college boyfriend and felt like the loneliest person alive, Bear climbed into bed with me and licked my tears like he was mopping up a mess. He wasn't just a dog, he was my lifeline, and Lacey ruined that. When I moved in with Lacey 6 months ago, I figured we'd clash. She just had that always has to be right vibe. Our disagreements started small. She used Bear's brush on her own hair because she couldn't find hers. She poured glittery bath soap into Bear's shampoo because dogs deserve spa days too. Then came the grass brownie. She fed him a brownie, then laughed when Bear puked on the floor. I should have moved out, but rent was cheap and Bear seemed okay after the vet visit. But then last week, Bear collapsed. The vet said it was sudden heart failure. Nothing I could have done. I cried for 2 days straight. I told Lacey I needed some space, that I'd be going to stay at a friend's for the weekend. When I came back Monday morning, she was crouched in the living room, squealing baby talk to a pit bull mix with wild eyes. "Surprise," she said. "Meet Bear 2.0. I wanted to help you move on. It's not healthy to dwell, so I rescued him." I stared at her. "You named him Bear? Isn't it cute?" she chirped. "Oh, and I found the collar. So sentimental." She meant Bear's collar, the one I was going to have mounted in a shadow box with his paw print. I walked past her into my room, but my door was already open. Turns out the pit bull had gotten into my room. My bed was torn up, my journals shredded. The stuffed fox Bear used to sleep with was destroyed. Bits of it lay scattered in tufts around the floor. I couldn't breathe. "Oops," Lacey said from the hall. "He has separation anxiety. You should have texted if you were coming late." I turned around slowly. "He destroyed everything." She crossed her arms. "You said you loved dogs. I figured you'd get it." That night, she complained that Bear 2.0 chewed her AirPods and demanded I pay for them. "You left them on the floor," I said. "He's your emotional baggage," she snapped. That's when I decided to get even. I called the landlord, asked what the pet deposit was. He sounded confused. "There's a dog in 3B? "Oh yeah," I said. "A pit mix. Not registered." Lacey came home to a notice taped to the door. "What is this?" she shrieked. "I guess you forgot to add your dog to the lease," I said. "Oops." She flipped. She threatened to have me evicted for hiding the dog first, and told the landlord I was emotionally unstable, and that the new dog was her support animal. But when he asked for documentation, she sent in a screenshot of a BuzzFeed quiz titled, "Which therapy dog are you?" He gave her 72 hours to rehome the dog or move out. She screamed at me for hours, claimed I was obsessed with grief and needed help. "You couldn't handle one bad day without that stupid mutt." "You're right," I said. "That's why I had him, to help me get through people like you." She packed up, said she'd be staying with a friend who actually understood dogs. Before she left, she filed a fake noise complaint and texted me, "Don't worry, karma's coming." 2 days later, I got a message from our landlord saying someone reported me for hoarding animals. Animal control showed up the next day, but found nothing but Bear's urn and a clean apartment. "You must have ticked someone off," the officer said. She closed her notebook with a snap and gave me a sympathetic look. "This happens sometimes during roommate disputes or bad breakups. Someone calls in a false report out of spite." I nodded, relief washing over me. "My roommate just moved out. It wasn't exactly amicable." "Well, your place is spotless. I'll file my report showing no violations." She paused at the door. "I'm sorry about your dog. Losing them is never easy." I spent the next few days in a strange limbo. On one hand, I felt vindicated knowing Lacey had faced consequences for her actions. On the other, I couldn't shake the anxiety that lingered in the corners of my apartment. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every sound at the door sent my heart racing. I'd blocked Lacey's number, but that didn't stop her from finding ways to reach me. First came the emails from throwaway accounts. The messages appeared in my inbox at odd hours, each from a different address but unmistakably from her. "You think this is over? I'm just getting started. Hope you're enjoying the peace while it lasts." Then came the 1-star reviews on my freelance design profile, all posted within minutes of each other. The notifications popped up on my phone in rapid succession, each one a small stab to my professional reputation. Unprofessional, flaky, doesn't deliver what was promised. I knew it was her. The timing was too perfect, and she knew how much I relied on those gigs to supplement my income. The reviews were vague enough that they could apply to anyone, but specific enough to sound legitimate to potential clients. I deleted the emails, reported the fake reviews, tried to move on with my life, but the weight of her threats hung over me like a storm cloud. I found myself checking the locks twice before bed, jumping at unexpected sounds, scanning crowds for her face when I ventured outside. A week later, I received a text from an unknown number. My finger hovered over the delete button, assuming it was another message from Lacey, but the preview caught my eye. "Hi, this is Marcus Henderson. Tina gave me your number. We wanted to invite you over for dinner this weekend. As a thank you for helping us get Rusty back. No pressure, but the offer's open." I stared at the message for a long time, confusion washing over me. Who was Marcus Henderson? Who was Tina? And who was Rusty? I had no idea what this person was talking about, but something about the message seemed genuine, not like Lacey's threatening notes. After hesitating, I replied cautiously, "I think you might have the wrong number. I don't know anyone named Rusty." The response came quickly. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Aren't you the person who reported Lacey Romano for having a stolen dog? The pit mix?" My blood ran cold. Bear 2.0 was stolen? I typed back with shaking fingers. "I did report her for having an unauthorized dog in our apartment, but I didn't know he was stolen. He's our family dog, Rusty. She took him from our yard 3 weeks ago. The police returned him to us yesterday after your landlord called it in. We're so grateful." Part of me wanted to decline, to stay hidden away in my apartment until this whole nightmare was over. But another part, a stronger part, was tired of letting fear dictate my life. "I'd like that," I texted back. "Thank you." The Hendersons lived in a modest house with a large fenced backyard. The lawn was neatly trimmed, with colorful flower beds lining the walkway to the front door. A child's bicycle lay on its side near the porch, and wind chimes tinkled softly in the gentle breeze. It looked like a happy home, the kind of place where a family dog would be loved and cherished. When I arrived Saturday evening, Rusty greeted me at the door with enthusiastic barks and a wagging tail. His whole body wiggled with excitement as he sniffed my hands and clothes, probably detecting Bear's lingering scent. His eyes were no longer wild and anxious. Instead, they were bright and alert, full of the confidence of a dog who knows he's home. "He remembers you," Tina said, smiling as Rusty sniffed my hands, his tail thumping against the doorframe. She was a petite woman with curly brown hair and laugh lines around her eyes. Dogs have amazing memories for people who've been kind to them. I knelt down to pet him, feeling a bittersweet pang. He wasn't Bear, but there was something healing about seeing him where he belonged. His coat was shiny and well-groomed, not matted and dirty as it had been when Lacey had him. He leaned into my touch, his solid warmth against my hand both familiar and strange. The Hendersons' 2 kids, Emma and Noah, showed me Rusty's toys, his bed, the special spot in the yard where he liked to dig. Emma, about 8, proudly demonstrated how Rusty could high-five, while Noah, a few years younger, giggled as the dog licked his face. Their easy affection for the dog made me realize how right it had been to help reunite them, even if I'd done so unknowingly. "He was so sad when he first came back," Emma confided as we sat on the porch steps watching Rusty chase a tennis ball across the yard. "He wouldn't eat his favorite treats or anything, but now he's happy again," Noah added, his small hand patting my arm reassuringly, "just like you'll be happy again someday." Over dinner, Marcus updated me on the case against Lacey. He was a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a calm demeanor that suggested he dealt with crises professionally. The prosecutor says it's pretty straightforward. They have the security footage of her taking Rusty, plus she admitted it to the police when they came to get him. He passed me a basket of warm rolls, the buttery smell making my stomach growl despite my anxiety. "What will happen to her?" I asked, pushing food around my plate, the pasta suddenly tasteless in my mouth. The thought of Lacey facing legal consequences brought a complicated mix of satisfaction and dread. Probably probation, community service, maybe a fine. Since it's her first offense and Rusty wasn't harmed, Marcus shrugged, his fork pausing midway to his mouth. "The important thing is she won't be able to do this to anyone else." I nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that Lacey wouldn't go down without a fight, and that fight would be directed at me. The pasta in my mouth turned to ash, and I had to force myself to swallow. When I got home that night, I found my apartment door slightly ajar. My blood ran cold. I was certain I'd locked it before leaving. The deadbolt had been engaged, the handle secured. I backed away, fumbling for my phone to call the police, when Mrs. Schneider from across the hall opened her door. She was in her 70s, with silver hair always perfectly styled and a collection of cardigan sweaters for every occasion. Tonight's was pale blue with pearl buttons. "Oh, there you are, dear. I was worried when I saw your door open. The maintenance man came by to fix that leaky faucet you reported. He must have forgotten to pull it shut all the way when he left." Her voice was cheerful, but her eyes held concern as she took in my pale face. Relief flooded through me. "Thank you, Mrs. Schneider. I didn't realize he was coming today." She smiled kindly, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "No problem. You seem jumpy lately. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just tired. Work's been busy." Inside my apartment, everything looked normal. The living room was undisturbed, my laptop still on the coffee table where I'd left it. The kitchen was tidy, dishes drying in the rack. The faucet was indeed fixed, no longer dripping with that rhythmic plink that had been driving me crazy for weeks. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it until I went to make tea and found my mugs rearranged in the cabinet. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. The blue one was now in front of the green, the handle facing the wrong direction. My favorite mug with the cat pattern was pushed to the back when I always kept it at the front. Then I saw that Bear's urn had been moved slightly on the bookshelf. The ceramic container had been shifted about an inch to the left, no longer perfectly centered between my college textbooks and the framed photo of Bear and me at the park. The picture frame next to it was turned at a different angle, the image of Bear playing in snow now tilted slightly downward. Someone had been in my apartment touching my things, and it wasn't the maintenance man. The realization sent ice through my veins, my skin prickling with goosebumps despite the warm apartment. I called the landlord immediately, my heart hammering. "Did you send someone to fix my faucet today?" "No," he said, sounding confused. "You didn't report a leaky faucet." My hands started shaking. "Someone was in my apartment. They told my neighbor they were maintenance." The landlord swore. "I'll be right over. Don't touch anything." He arrived 20 minutes later with the actual maintenance man, Dale. Dale was in his 50s, with calloused hands and a tool belt that had seen better days. They checked the apartment thoroughly while I stood in the hallway, hugging myself, the chill of fear seeping into my bones. "Nothing seems to be missing," the landlord said when they finished. His brow was furrowed with concern, his phone already in hand to call the police. "But someone definitely picked the lock. We'll change it right now, and I'll review the building's security footage." Dale installed a new deadbolt, stronger than the previous one. The sound of his drill was oddly comforting, concrete action being taken to protect me. The landlord promised to call me once he'd checked the cameras. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the door and slept with my phone in my hand, ready to call 911. Every creak of the building settling made me jolt awake, heart racing. The shadows in my room seemed deeper, more threatening. I left the bathroom light on. The door cracked just enough to provide a reassuring glow. The landlord called the next morning. I checked the footage. A woman entered the building around 3 p.m., buzzed several apartments until someone let her in. She was wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, but he hesitated, his voice crackling slightly over the phone. "It looked like your former roommate." My stomach clenched, a cold knot of fear tightening. "Did you call the police?" "I did. They're sending someone over to take a statement and look at the footage. They said since nothing was stolen, it might be hard to prove criminal intent, but the unauthorized entry is still illegal." I thanked him and hung up, then immediately called Marcus Henderson. My fingers trembled as I dialed, nearly missing the numbers. "Lacey broke into my apartment yesterday," I said without preamble. The words tumbled out in a rush, my breath coming fast and shallow. What? His voice sharpened. Are you okay? Did she take anything? I'm fine. Nothing's missing, but she moved things around, like she wanted me to know she'd been here. I paced my small kitchen, one hand clutching the phone, the other wrapped around my middle as if holding myself together. Marcus was quiet for a moment. This could violate her bail conditions. You need to report this. The landlord already called the police. They're coming to take a statement. Good. Document everything. Take pictures of anything that was moved, and… He paused, the silence heavy with unspoken concern. Maybe you should stay somewhere else for a while. The thought had already crossed my mind, but hearing someone else suggest it made it real, made it necessary rather than optional. The idea of leaving my home, of being driven out, filled me with both fear and anger. I don't want to let her drive me out of my own home. My voice cracked slightly, betraying the emotion behind my words. I understand, but safety first, right? His tone was gentle but firm, the voice of someone used to making difficult decisions. After we hung up, I stared at Bear's urn on the bookshelf. The ceramic container was simple but elegant, glazed in a deep blue that reminded me of his collar. The idea of leaving it behind made my chest ache, but carrying it around seemed impractical. I couldn't keep living in fear, jumping at shadows. I called my friend Julie, the one I'd stayed with after Bear died. She answered on the second ring, her voice immediately concerned when she heard mine. What's wrong? She asked, cutting through my attempt at casual conversation. I explained the situation, the break-in, the moved items, the police involvement. With each detail, her voice grew more alarmed. Come over now, she said immediately. Stay as long as you need. Bring Bear too. I packed a bag, carefully wrapped Bear's urn in a soft towel, and placed it in my backpack. The ceramic container felt heavier than usual, as if weighted with all my grief and fear. I double-checked the new locks, made sure all windows were secured, and took one last look around my apartment before leaving. As I was leaving, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The notification preview showed just enough to make my blood run cold. Nice visit with the Hendersons? Bet Rusty doesn't even remember you. Dogs are so fickle, like people. How did Lacey know I'd visited the Hendersons? Had she been watching their house? Watching me? The thought made my skin crawl, goosebumps rising on my arms despite the warm spring day. I looked around the street nervously as I walked to my car, half expecting to see her lurking in the shadows. I took a screenshot of the message and forwarded it to Marcus, then deleted the original and blocked the number. My hands shook as I started my car, checking the back seat twice before pulling away from the curb. Julie lived in a secure building with a doorman. The lobby was marble and glass, impersonal but reassuring in its solidity. Hector, the doorman, was a former military man with broad shoulders and alert eyes that missed nothing. He checked my ID carefully before allowing me upstairs, even though Julie had called down to approve my arrival. The moment I stepped into her apartment, some of the tension left my shoulders. Her place was the opposite of mine. Colorful throw pillows scattered across a plush couch, art prints covering nearly every wall, plants thriving on every available surface. It smelled of cinnamon and coffee, warm and inviting. Her cat, Mochi, regarded me suspiciously from the couch, his orange tail twitching slightly. His green eyes followed my movements as I set down my bags, clearly unimpressed with this invasion of his territory. You look terrible, Julie said, taking my bag. Her blunt honesty was one of the things I loved about her. No sugarcoating, just straight truth delivered with compassion. When's the last time you slept properly? Before Bear died, I admitted. The dark circles under my eyes had become so normal I barely noticed them anymore. She squeezed my arm. Well, you're safe here. No one gets in without going through Hector downstairs, and he's ex-military and very serious about his job. I placed Bear's urn on the nightstand in Julie's guest room. The room was small but cozy, with a patchwork quilt on the bed and curtains that filtered the afternoon sunlight into a warm glow. Somehow, having him there made the unfamiliar space feel more like home. I ran my fingers over the smooth ceramic, whispering a quiet, "We're okay," before unpacking my clothes. That evening, Officer Ronan Davis came to take my statement about the break-in. He was young but thorough, asking detailed questions about my history with Lacey. His notebook filled with neat handwriting as I recounted everything from her taking Bear's brush to the devil's lettuce brownie incident to the theft of Rusty. And you're certain it was her? He asked, reviewing his notes. His pen tapped against the page rhythmically as he spoke. The building security footage shows someone matching her description, I said. And then I got this text. I showed him the screenshot, the words seeming even more threatening displayed on my phone screen. His expression darkened. This could constitute harassment. Combined with the unauthorized entry, we might have enough to bring her in for questioning. Will that help? I asked. My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. She'll just deny everything. Maybe. But it puts her on notice that we're watching. Sometimes that's enough to make people back off. He handed me his card, the edges crisp and professional. Call me directly if anything else happens. And document everything. After he left, Julie made us dinner and we watched mindless TV comedies until my eyelids grew heavy. The familiar rhythm of sitcom jokes and canned laughter provided a comforting background noise, drowning out my anxious thoughts. For the first time in days, I slept through the night, the combination of exhaustion and Julie's secure apartment finally allowing me to truly rest. The next morning, I woke to several missed calls from unknown numbers. No voicemails, no texts, just calls, all between 2 and 4 a.m. The timestamps glowed accusingly on my screen. 2:17, 2:43, 3:12, 3:47. I blocked each number, my momentary peace evaporating like morning dew under a harsh sun. She's escalating, Julie said when I showed her. Her normally cheerful face was serious as she scrolled through the call log. This is getting scary, I nodded, feeling hollow. I can't hide forever. I have to go back to work, to my apartment eventually. Not until they arrest her again, Julie insisted. She set a mug of coffee in front of me, the steam rising in fragrant curls. You can work remotely. I already told you. Stay as long as you need. I was grateful, but the situation felt unsustainable. I couldn't live in fear indefinitely, waiting for Lacey's next move. The constant vigilance was exhausting, draining me of energy I needed to heal from losing Bear. That afternoon, Tina Henderson called. Her voice was warm but concerned as it came through my phone speaker. Marcus told me what happened. I'm so sorry. This is all because you helped us. The genuine regret in her tone made my throat tighten unexpectedly. It's not your fault, I assured her. Lacey was unhinged long before this. Still, we feel responsible. Marcus has a friend who's a lawyer. He specializes in harassment cases, restraining orders, that sort of thing. He's willing to meet with you pro bono. I hesitated. A restraining order seemed like an escalation, but maybe that's what the situation required. The calls in the middle of the night, the break-in, the threatening texts, they were all building toward something worse. I could feel it. Thank you, I said finally. I'd appreciate that. The lawyer, Austin Tatum, met me at Julie's apartment the next day. He was older than I expected, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His suit was perfectly tailored, his handshake firm but not aggressive. He listened attentively as I recounted my history with Lacey, taking occasional notes on a leather-bound notepad. Based on what you've told me, we have grounds for a temporary restraining order, he said after hearing my story. The break-in, the threatening texts, the harassment calls. It won't stop her if she's determined, but it gives the police more options if she violates it. How long does it take? I asked. I twisted my hands in my lap, the skin around my nails raw from nervous picking. We can file today. There's usually a hearing within 10 days, but given the circumstances, I might be able to get an emergency order sooner. He closed his notepad with a decisive snap. The judge I have in mind takes stalking and harassment very seriously. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. Let's do it. Austin helped me fill out the paperwork, detailing every interaction with Lacey since Bear's death. The forms were cold and clinical, reducing the emotional trauma to checkboxes and brief descriptions. Seeing it all laid out chronologically made me realize how quickly things had escalated, from thoughtless cruelty to active malice in just a few weeks. What happens at the hearing? I asked as he gathered the forms. The stack of papers seemed inadequate to capture the fear I'd been living with. You'll testify about why you need protection. Lacey will have a chance to respond. The judge will decide whether to grant a permanent order. He adjusted his glasses, pushing them higher on his nose. It can be intimidating, but I'll be with you the whole time. After Austin left, I felt drained but slightly more hopeful. Having a plan, taking action, it helped combat the helplessness I'd been feeling. Julie made tea, the familiar ritual soothing as we sat at her kitchen table. That night, Julie and I were watching a movie when my phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was Bear Lover, with a string of numbers. The subject line, missing something? Against my better judgment, I opened it. There was no message, just an image attachment. When I tapped it, my breath caught. It was a picture of Bear's collar, the one Lacey had taken, laid out on what looked like a cutting board, next to a large kitchen knife. The blue nylon was unmistakable, the silver tag catching the light. The knife beside it was positioned deliberately, its blade gleaming menacingly. I showed Julie, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The color drained from her face as she looked at the image. That's it, she said, grabbing her phone. I'm calling Officer Davis right now. While she spoke to the police, I forwarded the email to Austin with a brief explanation. He responded almost immediately. This strengthens our case. Don't delete anything. Officer Davis arrived within the hour, his expression grim as he viewed the email. The image looked even more threatening displayed on his tablet, the knife blade catching the light in a way that emphasized its sharpness. I thought Bear's collar was in evidence, I said, my voice small. I hugged myself tightly, trying to stop the trembling that had taken over my body. It should be, he said, frowning. When we recovered Rusty, we collected the collar as evidence of theft. I'll check with the department. In the meantime, this is a clear threat. We're going to try to trace the email account. After he left, I sat on Julie's couch, staring at nothing. The image of Bear's collar next to that knife kept flashing in my mind. What was Lacey planning? What else was she capable of? The questions circled endlessly, offering no answers, only increasing my anxiety. You should sleep, Julie said gently. She placed a soft blanket around my shoulders, the weight of it grounding. I'll stay up a while longer. I nodded, too exhausted to argue. In the guest room, I curled around Bear's urn as if I could protect him even now. The ceramic was cool against my cheek, a poor substitute for the warm, living dog who used to sleep beside me. I'm sorry, I whispered to the ceramic container. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you before. The next morning, Austin called with news. His voice was brisk but satisfied as he delivered the update. The judge granted an emergency restraining order. Lacey can't come within 500 feet of you, your home, or your workplace. She can't contact you by any means. The legal terminology sounded reassuringly official, a shield of words and consequences. Relief washed over me. Thank you. The police will serve her today. The hearing for the permanent order is set for next week. He paused, his tone becoming more cautious. This is good news, but stay vigilant. These orders are only as effective as the person's willingness to obey them. I thanked him again and hung up, feeling a small weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't a solution, but it was something. A legal acknowledgement that Lacey's behavior was unacceptable and dangerous. Officer Davis called an hour later. We've confirmed the collar is missing from evidence. We're investigating how it was removed and who had access. My stomach dropped. So it's really Bear's collar in the photo? It appears so. We're treating this very seriously now. Tampering with evidence is a felony. His voice was tight with professional anger. Someone in the department helped her, which means this goes beyond a personal vendetta. I closed my eyes, trying to process this new information. What should I do? Stay where you are for now. We're going to try to locate Ms. Romano for questioning, but they couldn't find her. Lacey had apparently left her friend Abigail's apartment the day before and hadn't returned. Her phone was off. Her social media accounts had gone quiet. It was as if she'd vanished, which somehow felt more threatening than her active harassment. Days passed. The restraining order was officially served by posting it at Abigail's address, since Lacey couldn't be found in person. I continued staying at Julie's, working remotely, venturing out only when necessary and always with Julie or another friend accompanying me. The constant vigilance was exhausting, but the alternative, being alone and vulnerable, was unthinkable. The hearing date for the permanent restraining order approached. Austin prepared me for what to expect, but warned me that if Lacey didn't show up, the judge might postpone. We'll argue against that, he assured me. Given the circumstances, her absence shouldn't delay your protection. The night before the hearing, I received another email from the Bear Lover account. This time, there was a message. See you in court tomorrow. Hope you're ready for what comes next. I forwarded it to Austin and Officer Davis, my hands trembling. The threat was vague but unmistakable. My imagination filled in the blanks with increasingly terrifying scenarios. We'll have extra security at the courthouse, Officer Davis promised when he called. She won't get near you. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with possibilities. What was Lacey planning? Would she actually show up? What would I say if I had to face her? The questions circled endlessly, offering no peace, no rest. The morning of the hearing, Julie insisted on coming with me for moral support. She laid out clothes for me, professional but comfortable, a navy blue blouse and gray slacks that made me look put together despite the dark circles under my eyes. She made breakfast, though I could barely eat. My stomach knotted with anxiety. Austin met us outside the courthouse, his expression serious. Remember, stick to the facts, he advised as we walked in. Don't let emotion overtake you, even if she tries to provoke you. The courthouse was busy, people rushing in all directions. Security was tight. We had to pass through metal detectors, have our bags searched. Officer Davis was waiting inside, along with another officer I didn't recognize. Both scanned the crowd constantly, alert for any sign of Lacey. No sign of her yet, Davis said, scanning the crowd, but we're watching all entrances. We made our way to the assigned courtroom and took seats near the front. Austin arranged his papers, occasionally glancing toward the door. Julie squeezed my hand reassuringly. The room smelled of furniture polish and anxiety, the wooden benches hard and uncomfortable beneath me. 10 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to start, the courtroom doors opened. I turned, expecting to see Lacey. Instead, it was Abigail Davis, Lacey's friend. She looked nervous, clutching her purse tightly as she scanned the room. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her face pale and drawn with worry. When she spotted me, she hesitated, then walked over. Her steps were uncertain, her shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Austin stood immediately, positioning himself between us. His posture was protective, his voice firm but controlled. "My client has a restraining order against Lacey Romano. If you're here on her behalf—" "I'm not," Abigail interrupted. "I'm here because I'm scared. For her and for everyone." Her voice trembled slightly, her knuckles white where she gripped her purse. Austin and I exchanged glances. He nodded slightly, giving permission while remaining alert. "What do you mean?" I asked. Abigail glanced around nervously, as if expecting Lacey to materialize from the crowd of strangers filling the courtroom. "Lacey's not coming today. She's not well. After they took the dog back, something broke in her. She kept talking about making things right, making people pay." She swallowed hard, her throat working visibly with the effort. "I found these in my apartment yesterday." She opened her purse and carefully removed a small plastic bag. Inside was Bear's collar, cut into pieces. The blue nylon had been sliced methodically, the silver tag separated from the fabric. My breath caught at the sight, a physical pain stabbing through my chest. Officer Davis stepped forward immediately, taking the bag. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. "From Lacey's room, after she left." Abigail's eyes filled with tears, mascara smudging slightly as she blinked rapidly. "There was more. Plans, notes about following you, about the courthouse today. I think she was going to hurt you." The room seemed to tilt. Julie grabbed my arm to steady me, her fingers digging into my skin. The background noise of the courtroom faded to a dull roar in my ears. "Where is she now?" Austin asked sharply. "I don't know. She left yesterday and didn't come back. I called her parents, but they haven't heard from her either." Abigail wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup further. "I should have said something sooner. I just didn't want to believe she'd actually do anything. But then I found the collar, and those notes." Officer Davis pulled out his phone, stepping away to make a call. His voice was low and urgent as he spoke to someone at the station. Austin guided me and Abigail to sit down, his manner calm despite the tension radiating from him. "Tell us everything," he said. "Start from the beginning." Abigail's story poured out in a rush. How Lacey had shown up at her door with Rusty/Bear 2.0, claiming she'd rescued him from an abusive home. How devastated she'd been when the police came to take him. How her anger had gradually twisted into obsession. "She kept saying you ruined her life," Abigail told me. "That you turned everyone against her. She somehow got that collar from the police station. I don't know how. She said it was the first step in making things even." My skin crawled. All this time I'd been afraid of Lacey's harassment, her petty revenge. I hadn't considered she might be capable of real violence. The realization sent a chill through me, goosebumps rising on my arms despite the warmth of the crowded courtroom. Officer Davis returned, his expression grim. "We're putting out an alert for Ms. Romano. Ms. Davis, we'll need you to come to the station to make a formal statement. The judge entered the courtroom then, and Austin quickly explained the situation. The judge's expression grew increasingly concerned as Austin outlined the evidence of Lacey's escalating behavior and the new information from Abigail. Given the new evidence and Lacey's absence, the judge granted the permanent restraining order immediately, setting it for the maximum duration allowed. As we left the courthouse, surrounded by police officers, I felt hollow rather than relieved. The restraining order seemed meaningless now. Lacey was out there somewhere, unhinged and fixated on revenge. The legal protection felt like paper armor against a very real threat. What happens now? I asked Officer Davis as we reached the parking lot. The spring sunshine felt incongruously bright given the darkness of the situation. We find her, he said simply. In the meantime, we'll have officers checking on your apartment regularly. You should continue staying with your friend for now. I nodded numbly. The pieces of Bear's collar, the memorial I'd planned, destroyed out of spite, symbolized everything Lacey had taken from me. My sense of safety, my peace of mind, my chance to properly grieve my dog. For the next 3 days, I barely left Julie's apartment. Every notification on my phone sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system. Every knock at the door made me freeze. Officer Davis called daily with updates, but they all amounted to the same thing. No sign of Lacey. We've got officers watching your apartment and patrolling this area, he assured me. Her face is circulating through every precinct. She can't stay hidden forever. But his words did little to ease the constant knot in my stomach. I kept thinking about Bear's collar, cut to pieces, the methodical cruelty of it. What kind of person does that? On the 4th day, Julie had to go into the office for an important meeting. I can cancel, she offered, hovering by the door with her laptop bag. Her expression was torn between professional obligation and concern for my safety. No, go, I insisted. I can't hide forever. Besides, Hector's downstairs and Officer Davis said they'd have someone driving by regularly. After she left, the apartment felt too quiet. Even Mochi had disappeared to whatever secret cat hiding spot he preferred during the day. I tried to work, but couldn't focus. Every creak in the building made me look up. The silence pressed in around me, making it hard to breathe. Around noon, my phone rang with an unknown number. My finger hovered over the decline button, but something made me answer. A gut feeling I couldn't explain. Hello? It's Abigail. Her voice was hushed, nervous. Lacey came back last night. My heart slammed against my ribs. Did you call the police? No, She seemed different, calmer. She apologized for everything, said she'd been having a breakdown but was better now. Abigail paused, a slight hesitation that raised my suspicions. I think she's been staying at her parents' place in Westbrook. Abigail, you need to call the police, right now. I was already moving toward the door, checking that it was locked, the deadbolt engaged. That's why I'm calling you first. She said she wants to apologize to you too. Make things right. Abigail's voice had an odd quality to it, a forced casualness that didn't match her usual speech patterns. I almost laughed. Make things right? After breaking into my apartment? Threatening me? Cutting up my dead dog's collar? I know how it sounds, Abigail said quickly, but she seemed sincere. She's been through a lot. We've all been through a lot. I snapped. That doesn't excuse what she did. There was a long pause. Too long. I could hear breathing on the other end of the line, but Abigail didn't respond. A terrible suspicion formed in my mind. She's sitting right next to you, isn't she? I asked. Another pause. Then Lacey's voice. Clever girl. I ended the call immediately and dialed Officer Davis. When he didn't answer, I called 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. What's your emergency? The dispatcher asked. My name is... I started, then heard a knock at Julie's door. I froze, the words dying in my throat. Hello? What's your emergency? The dispatcher repeated. Another knock, more insistent this time. The sound echoed through the apartment, making me jump. Someone's at the door, I whispered. I have a restraining order against Lacey Romano. I think she's here. Stay on the line. I'm dispatching officers to your location now. Don't open the door. The dispatcher's voice was calm, but urgent, a lifeline through the phone. I crept to the peephole, phone still pressed to my ear. Through the distorted fisheye lens, I could see Hector, the doorman, standing in the hallway. Relief flooded through me. His familiar uniform and posture were instantly recognizable, though something about his stance seemed off. It's just the doorman, I told the dispatcher. Miss? Hector called through the door. There's a package for you downstairs. Needs a signature. Something felt off. Hector never delivered packages himself. Residents had to go down to the lobby to collect them, and his voice sounded strained, not his usual cheerful tone. Sir, I called through the door. Can you leave it at the desk? I'll come down later. I'm afraid not. Courier's waiting. Says it's urgent. There was a slight tremor in his voice that raised alarm bells in my mind. The dispatcher's voice came through my phone. Ma'am, do not open that door. Officers are 3 minutes out. I backed away from the door, heart pounding. Hector, I'm not feeling well. Please tell them to leave it. A moment of silence. Then, a different voice. Lacey's voice. Open the door, or I swear to God I'll hurt him worse than I already have. My blood turned to ice. What did you do to him? Nothing permanent. Yet. But that could change real quick. The threat in her voice was unmistakable, cold and calculating. I looked around frantically for a weapon. Anything I could use to defend myself. The best I could find was a heavy ceramic lamp. I unplugged it, gripping the base tightly, the weight of it reassuring in my hands. Officers are 1 minute away, the dispatcher said in my ear. Stay on the line. I have Bear's ashes, I called through the door, trying to buy time. If you hurt Hector, I'll flush them down the toilet. A pause, then a thud against the door, like someone had kicked it. The wood vibrated with the impact, the frame creaking ominously. You're lying, Lacey hissed. You wouldn't do that to your precious mutt. Try me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You've already destroyed everything else. What's left to lose? Another thud against the door. The wood splintered slightly around the deadbolt. One more good kick and it would give way. I gripped the lamp tighter, backing toward the kitchen where there were knives. My palms were slick with sweat, making the ceramic base slippery in my grasp. Through the phone, I could hear the dispatcher saying something about staying calm. That help was almost there. The words barely registered through the roaring in my ears. The door shuddered with another impact. The frame cracked. One more kick and, suddenly there were shouts in the hallway. The sound of running feet, a woman's scream, Lacey's scream, and a man's voice ordering someone to get down on the ground. There was a thud, then the sound of a struggle, more shouting. I stayed frozen in place, lamp still clutched in my hands, until there was a gentle knock at the damaged door. "Police," a woman's voice called. "Are you all right in there?" I lowered the lamp with trembling hands. "Yes," I managed to say, though my voice cracked. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood in the hallway. Behind them, Lacey was face down on the floor, hands cuffed behind her back, a female officer kneeling on her back. Her face was pressed against the carpet, but I could see her eyes, wild with rage, fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Hector sat against the wall, holding a bloody cloth to his head. His uniform shirt was torn, a bruise forming on his cheek. Despite his injuries, he gave me a reassuring nod. "Are you hurt?" one of the officers asked me. I shook my head, unable to take my eyes off Lacey. She turned her face toward me, her expression a mixture of rage and something else. Desperation maybe. Madness, certainly. "This isn't over," she spat. "You think you've won? You haven't." The officer hauling her to her feet cut her off. "That's enough. You've got a lot more to worry about now than your grudge." As they led her away, I rushed to Hector. "I'm so sorry," I said, kneeling beside him. "Are you okay?" He managed a weak smile. "She caught me by surprise, hit me with something when I was checking the mail. I'll be fine." The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, followed by Julie, who'd been called by the building management. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe, her familiar perfume enveloping me in a cloud of comfort. "Thank God you're okay," she whispered. When they called me, I thought, "I'm fine," I assured her, though my hands wouldn't stop shaking. They got her. At the police station, I gave my statement while Julie sat beside me, her steady presence keeping me grounded. The interview room was small and sterile, the fluorescent lights harsh overhead. I recounted everything: the phone call from Abigail, Lacey's voice, the threats against Hector. Officer Davis looked grimmer than I'd ever seen him. "She'll be charged with multiple felonies," he told me. "Assault, breaking and entering, violating the restraining order, tampering with evidence. With her history of escalation, I don't think any judge will grant bail this time." I nodded, feeling hollow rather than relieved. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me exhausted and shaky. "What about Hector?" 6 stitches, mild concussion. He'll recover." Davis hesitated, tapping his pen against his notepad. "There's something else. When we searched her, we found this." He placed an evidence bag on the table. Inside was a small key, unremarkable except for the orange plastic tag attached to it. "It's for a storage unit," Davis explained. "We got a warrant and searched it this afternoon. Found quite a collection. Journals detailing her plans, photos of you, surveillance notes, and this." He slid another evidence bag across the table. Inside was a small plastic container. It took me a moment to recognize what I was seeing. Bear's paw print, the one the vet had made after he died, that I'd planned to mount with his collar. The clay impression of his paw was intact, though the container had been opened. "How did she get this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. I reached toward the bag, then pulled my hand back, afraid to touch it. "We're still investigating, but it seems she's been collecting trophies, things connected to you and your dog." Davis's expression was professionally neutral, but I could see the concern in his eyes. I stared at the paw print, tears blurring my vision. I'd thought it was lost forever, like the collar. "Can I have it back?" I asked. "Once the case is processed, yes. Both this and what's left of the collar." Davis's expression softened. "I'm sorry about all of this, but it's over now. She's going to be away for a long time." I wanted to believe him, but part of me still felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like Lacey might somehow find a way to reach me, even from jail. The fear had become so constant that I couldn't imagine life without it. That night, back at Julie's apartment, with the door repaired and extra security installed, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the day's events, imagining what might have happened if the police hadn't arrived when they did. The sound of Lacey's voice through the door kept echoing in my mind, cold and threatening. Julie found me at 3 a.m., sitting on the couch with Bear's urn in my lap. The living room was dark except for the soft glow of a single lamp, casting long shadows across the walls. "Nightmares?" she asked, settling beside me. She was wearing flannel pajamas with cartoon cats on them, her hair mussed from sleep. I nodded. I keep seeing her face, the way she looked at me. Julie wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "She can't hurt you anymore." I know. Logically, I know that, but I trailed off, unable to articulate the fear that still gripped me. "It'll take time," Julie said gently. "Trauma doesn't just disappear because the danger's gone." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of Bear's urn a comforting presence in my lap. Finally, I said what had been bothering me most. "I don't know how to move forward. Everything's been about survival for so long, about Lacey and what she might do next. I haven't even properly grieved for Bear." My voice caught on his name, the pain still fresh despite everything else that had happened. Julie squeezed my shoulder. "So start now." 2 weeks later, with Lacey denied bail and awaiting trial, I finally returned to my apartment. Julie offered to let me stay longer, but I needed to reclaim my space, my life. I needed to prove to myself that Lacey hadn't taken everything from me. The apartment felt different, emptier somehow, despite nothing being missing. The familiar furniture and decorations seemed like props on a stage rather than parts of a home. The silence silence was both welcome and oppressive after the constant activity at Julie's. I spent the first day deep cleaning, as if I could scrub away the memory of Lacey's intrusion. I washed every surface, vacuumed every corner, changed all the light bulbs to brighter ones that left no shadows. I rearranged furniture, bought new bedding, replaced the journals that Bear 2.0 had destroyed. The physical activity was therapeutic, giving me something concrete to focus on besides fear. Marcus and Tina Henderson invited me over for dinner again. Rusty greeted me like an old friend, his whole body wiggling with excitement as I knelt to pet him. His fur was soft under my hands, his tongue warm as he licked my wrist enthusiastically. "We've been thinking," Tina said as we sat in their backyard, watching Rusty chase squirrels. The evening was warm, the air fragrant with blooming flowers. "We'd like to make a donation to the animal shelter in Bear's name, maybe sponsor a senior dog adoption or something." The unexpected kindness brought tears to my eyes. "That would be amazing. Thank you. It's the least we can do," Marcus said. "If you hadn't helped us find Rusty," I shook my head. "I'm glad I did, despite everything that happened after." The police returned Bear's paw print and the pieces of his collar a month later. The collar was beyond repair, but I carefully arranged the fragments in a shadow box along with the paw print and a photo of Bear. I hung it on my living room wall, where I could see it every day. It wasn't the memorial I'd originally planned, but there was something fitting about its broken state, a reminder of what had been lost, but also preserved. Slowly, life began to feel normal again. I started working at my favorite coffee shop again, went out with friends, even considered dating. The nightmares became less frequent, though they never completely disappeared. Sometimes I'd still wake up in a cold sweat, certain I'd heard Lacey's voice or footsteps outside my door. Lacey's trial was scheduled for 6 months later. Austin warned me I'd likely have to testify, but assured me I'd be protected. I tried not to think about it, to focus on rebuilding my life instead. Each day without an incident, without a threat, was a small victory. One Saturday morning, I was walking through the park when I spotted a familiar figure, Diane, the animal control officer who'd come to my apartment after Lacey's false report. She was in civilian clothes, walking a small terrier on a red leash. She recognized me immediately. "Well, hello there. How are you doing?" Her smile was genuine, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Better," I said, surprised by how true it felt. "Much better." We chatted for a few minutes. She told me about other false reports she'd investigated, how common they were in relationship disputes. The terrier sniffed my shoes curiously, tail wagging. "People use animals as weapons sometimes," she said sadly. "It's the worst part of my job." As we were about to part ways, she hesitated. "This might be inappropriate, but we just got a surrender at the shelter. Older dog, about 8. Owner died, family couldn't keep him. He reminds me a lot of the dog in the photos you showed me. Bear, right?" My heart skipped. "What kind of dog?" "Lab mix. Super gentle, good with everyone." She pulled out her phone, showed me a picture of a gray muzzled dog with soulful eyes. His coat was a rich chocolate brown, his expression dignified despite the shelter setting. No pressure at all, just thought I'd mention it. I stared at the photo, feeling something shift inside me. Not replacement, never that. Bear was irreplaceable, unique, but maybe continuation, a new chapter, a chance to give another dog the love I still had to offer. "What's his name?" I asked. "Buddy, but you know, names can be changed." She smiled, understanding in her eyes. I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in months. I'd like to meet him. The next day, I visited the shelter. The building was older, but clean and well-maintained. The sound of barking echoed through the concrete hallways, but it wasn't frantic or distressed, just dogs being dogs. A volunteer led me to a meet and greet room, then brought in Buddy. He was exactly as Diane had described, gentle, soulful, with a gray muzzle and calm demeanor that reminded me of Bear in his later years. His brown eyes were intelligent and watchful, taking in everything about me. When I sat on the floor of the meet and greet room, he immediately came and leaned against me, as if he knew exactly what I needed. I adopted him that afternoon. The paperwork was simple, the adoption fee reasonable. The shelter staff provided me with his medical history, food recommendations, and a new leash. They seemed genuinely happy to see him going to a good home. On the way home, we stopped at the pet store for supplies. Buddy sat patiently in the car while I ran in for the essentials: food, bowls, a bed, some toys. He showed interest in a plush squirrel, gently taking it from my hand when I offered it to him. As I was checking out, the cashier asked, "What's his name?" I looked down at the dog sitting patiently by my side. Not Bear, never Bear, but still a companion, still a new beginning. "Phoenix," I said. "His name is Phoenix." At home, Phoenix explored cautiously, sniffing every corner. His nails clicked softly on the hardwood floors as he investigated his new surroundings. When he came to Bear's shadow box on the wall, he sat and looked up at it for a long moment, as if paying respects. The coincidence gave me chills, but not the frightening kind, more like recognition, acknowledgement. I knelt beside him, running my hand over his soft head. "That was Bear," I told him. "He was very special, but you're special too." That night, Phoenix slept on the bed beside me, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. His breathing was steady and reassuring in the darkness. For the first time since Bear died, I slept through the night without nightmares. In the morning, I woke to find Phoenix had moved closer, his head resting against my leg. The weight was comforting, grounding, not replacing the space Bear had left, but creating his own. And somehow, that felt exactly right.